Hi, I'm Kurt Landman with Polyvents. Thank you for your purchase of the 6049C Nitro Fuzer Lite nitrogen plastic welder. This is a fully capable nitrogen welder for the budget-minded shop. In order for us to reduce the cost of the welder, we packed it and shipped it in 2 boxes, so there will be some assembly required. The welder itself comes in this box. Let's take a look at what we get here. Inside the box, you'll see the welder itself, which is fully assembled and ready to go. We're going to install the welder onto the cart. This will be the part that we need to assemble. And inside this box, you'll also find your nitrogen bottle regulator, the airless plastic element, airless plastic welder that goes into the front of the welder, power cord, the tips for the airless plastic welder, and a full selection of plastic welding rods. We have 13 different types of plastic welding rods that comes with the kit. The next step will be to assemble the welding cart. Okay, now let's take a look inside the box that contains the welder cart. And inside this cart, you'll find all of the components necessary to build the cart. I'm not going to unload all of this right now, but I did want to show you that there's a complete instruction booklet that shows you exactly how to assemble the cart step by step. And it will be helpful to have some tools, for example, a 7/16 inch wrench with a speed driver and a Phillips head screwdriver for sure. But the assembly of the cart should take about half an hour. All right, now that we have the cart box unpacked, you'll see that we have a total of 18 different components, including a bag of your nuts and bolts and a bag for the bottle chains. We have the power strip, the air manifold, and all the sheet metal parts, which are all made in USA, very high quality stuff. We're gonna follow the instructions on building this cart using the nuts and bolts provided. The only thing that's tricky is that you wanna make sure that you put the legs on the proper size. They look very similar or identical, but they are mirror image. You can see these 2 holes are flipped. So you wanna make sure that these holes point toward the front of the cart when you assemble it. Now that we've finished assembly of the cart, it's time to install the welder onto the cart. And that is done by putting the welder up, and we'll use these 2 sheet metal screws to secure the welder to the cart. So we want to put the cart up on the shelf, put the sheet metal screw through, and then you kind of line it up on the bottom. Screw it in by hand loosely until we get everything lined up. Put the second screw in, make sure they line up with the hole in the bottom of the welder. There we go. And just kind of get everything lined up so it's not in a bind. Then we'll use speed driver with a 5/16. Okay, now that the welder is secure, it's time to hook up the plumbing to the welder. First, we want to connect the air, the compressed air. This is the manifold for the compressed air, and the fitting here. We need to connect this green tube from the fitting to the back of the welder to the air input. So we just insert that one end into the air input, run it through the hole in the bottom of the shelf, and then we're going to connect it to the air fitting on the back. The final plumbing task will be to install the nitrogen bottle regulator to the nitrogen connection on the back of the welder. So we'll run the green tubing up through the hole in the back here, up through the hole in the shelf, and then we will again insert it into the quick disconnect fitting on the back of the welder. Finally, now that the plumbing is connected, we need to establish the electrical connection between the welder and the power strip. And you'll just insert the end of the power cord into the back of the welder, other end in the power strip, and we're done. The final step will be to install the airless heating element. This is great for smoothing your nitrogen plastic welds, and it's also essential for repairing the urethane plastics, the yellow type bumpers. You'll use the urethane welding rod with the airless welder to repair that, not the nitrogen welder. The airless welder comes with two welding tips, the flat tip with a point on the end, and also the one with the hole that feeds through. It looks like a little foot. We'll put this one in the toolbox back here, and we'll thread on the flat pointed tip. This will be the one you'll use to smooth your nitrogen plastic welds. Screw that in there. We'll put this into the holster over here and plug this into the front of the welder. Now we're ready to use the plastic welder. The next step will be to install your shop's quick disconnect plug into the air manifold on front. Next, put a nitrogen bottle in the cradle on back and secure it with the included chains. The 125 cubic foot bottle, which is about 3.5 feet tall, is a good compromise between size and ease of handling. Next, install the included nitrogen bottle regulator. Do not use any thread tape on the threads. This seals on the conical face of the tip, not on the threads. Tighten the lock nut securely. Back to the front of the welder. If you want to install a whip hose for your air tools, then remove the plug in front of the air manifold and install your hose. Polyvance sells a whip hose, part number 6040, which includes an inline air blower at the tool end for convenience. When you're ready to start your welder, chuck up your shop's compressed air supply. Inlet pressure can range anywhere from 50 to 125 psi. Be sure to use clean, dry, compressed air. If any oil or water gets into the inner workings of your nitrogen welder, it will damage the heating element and other components. Such damage would not be covered by warranty. Always establish your air and nitrogen flow before turning on the power to your plastic welder. Although the welder does have a pressure safety switch, it's always good practice to get airflow through the welder before you turn on the heat. Note the manual valve for switching between air and nitrogen. With the red handle pointed to the air side, turn the flow valve until you have about 12.5 liters per minute of flow indicated by the flow meter. This is a good level for the air side. You shouldn't have to adjust the air because you won't be using air to weld. Rather, it just keeps the heating element at a steady temperature. Now that you have the air side set up, it's time to set up the nitrogen side. Switch the valve to nitrogen. You'll see the ball and the flow meter drop to 0. First, we have to open the bottle valve to get some nitrogen inlet pressure to the welder. Before you crack the bottle valve, loosen the T-handle on the pressure regulator to prevent any pressure spike from damaging the regulator. Open the bottle valve. You can see this bottle has about 900 psi remaining in it. Now, turn the T-handle to establish about 30 psi of nitrogen pressure to the welder. With the red valve pointing to the nitrogen side, open the flow valve and float the silver ball about halfway between 10 and 15 liters per minute. This is a good flow rate for your average bumper cover. If you are welding a very thin area, you can reduce the flow to about 10 liters per minute. If you are welding something thicker, like a heavy truck side panel, increase the flow to about 15 liters per minute. With Polyvance's nitrogen welder, you get full control of the welding process. Before we turn the power on, let's make sure we have flow on both the air and nitrogen sides. We can feel the flow coming from the tip and verify using the flow meter that there's about 12.5 liters of flow on both the air and nitrogen sides. Plug in your power cord. Make sure your power strip is on by looking at the lighted red switch on the power strip, and make sure your welder is plugged into the power strip. Turn the power on to the welder with this switch on the back of the welder. Note that the green pressure safe switch is glowing because we have sufficient airflow through the welder. Adjust the temperature of the nitrogen side to match the plastic you're working with and the nitrogen flow you plan to use. For polypropylene welding with the standard flow setting of 12.5 liters per minute, we will set the temperature at about 6.5. You will be able to feel the air start getting hotter immediately. Allow about 5 minutes for the element to warm up completely before use. Turn on the airless plastic welder to help smooth out your plastic welds. Set the temperature at the PP setting on the dial. It will take about 5 minutes for the airless welder to get up to the proper temperature. While your welder is warming up, select the welding rod you want to use for the job. Select the rod to match the plastic you will be welding. The kit comes with 13 types and profiles of welding rod. Since polypropylene is the most common type of plastic you'll be working with, the kit comes with 6 different profiles of polypropylene, 5 of which are in the organizer case. After you finish welding and are ready to shut off the welder, turn off the power first and let the air continue to run for about 5 minutes to cool down the heating element. This will help to prolong the life of your heating element. Also, shut the valve for the nitrogen bottle to prevent any leakage. For some quick training on how to use the welder, scan the QR codes on the training videos info sheet with your smartphone. This will take you to a 3-minute video on how to do the basic repair methods shown. The 6049C does not come with free courtesy training, but Polyvance offers several paid training options. Please call 800-633-3047 or go to polyvance.com to see all of the training options and other plastic repair and refinishing products that Polyvance offers.